So what will the Supreme Court decide? The Chief Justice of the Brazilian Supreme Court? If you have questions, call in 1-877-TEL-HLN is the number. Joining us to talk about this, someone who's covered this extensively, and we also lean on her expertise as a family law attorney, Vikki Ziegler, back with us. Also joining us, Mark DeAngelis, a friend of David Goldman. Their website, again, bringseanhome.org. Mark, let me start with you. What is David's hope? I mean, is it that simple that if, and correct me if I go astray here, but if the Chief Justice of the Brazilian Supreme Court rules in his favor, is that it? And little Sean comes home?
Well, we hope so. We'll have to wait and see. I think anybody who's followed the case as long as we have and watched the ups and downs and the twists and turns of the last 5.5 years knows that until they're headed to the airport to get on that airplane, we just don't know. There's too many different scenarios that could play out. We just have to take it one step at a time, but we are hopeful.
Yeah.
We'll get some good news soon.
All right, Vikki, help us out with these scenarios that Mark had just mentioned. I think a lot of folks at home have been following this. Their heart goes out to David Goldman. But who's deciding what right now, and how much weight does this decision we're waiting on carry?
Okay, well, this is a very big decision. If the Supreme Court lifts the ban at this point from the lower court's decision to stop the release of Sean to Mr. Goldman, then actually David Goldman can take Sean home. The question is, do they make that result today? Do they say that it's going to have to wait and abide time to interview Sean down the road after recess in 2010? These are the questions that we don't know, and I think these are the legal hurdles that we're finding that most of us here are legal practitioners in this country are saying, what is going on? So at the end of the day, as long as the Supreme Court will lift the ban and they'll allow Sean to go home with his father as ruled by the lower court, it looks like he may have a real shot in getting Sean home for the holidays.
And is it, Vikki, is it the entire Brazilian Supreme Court, or is it just a one man, the Chief Justice, making the call here?
We believe that it's more than one man, but
okay.
he's the main individual that's reviewing the lower court's record and the current ban right now. But at the end of the day, this decision seriously weighs. It's more about the law at this point. I think it's politics, and I think the outcry and the injustice that's going on right now. So I think there's so much more to this than just looking at the black letter of the law.
Yeah. Let's bring back Mark DeAngelis, again, a friend of David Goldman. Their website, again, bringseanhome.org. Mark, from your knowledge of this, is Sean's family in Brazil, are they going to say, okay, if the Supreme Court rules in David Goldman's favor, or are they going to appeal and continue this fight?
My understanding is their attorney has already come out and said he has an appeal ready to go if there's a decision that reverses the stay. And unfortunately, history tells us with these families that Sean's best interest is not really what they're looking after. They're looking after self-preservation and just trying to keep him there away from a caring and loving father at all costs. It's really a tragic situation.
Okay, Vikki, let's get back to that. So, Supreme Court rules in David Goldman's favor. The family in Brazil files the appeal. Sean stays at that point, or what happens?
Well, that's the great question. He should not have to stay. They should return him pending the review of the appellate decision's ruling. But as we've seen, the delay tactics here over the past 5 years have always been, you know, Mr. Goldman can take Sean home. No, he can't. The stay is happening. You have to wait. And really, it's unfair. At the end of the day, the Hague Convention says this is not where a custody dispute happens. It's really where who has jurisdiction, and the child should be returned to its domicile, and then a custody battle should ensue. So, in fact, the custody battle should have been taken up in New Jersey and not in Brazil the whole time.
Yeah, and come on, let's talk about the semantics here as well. Is it a custody battle? Is it an abduction case? Mark, how does David look at this?
I think David looks at it the way that most of us look at it, which is this has always been from day one, dating back to June of 2004, an illegal abduction of Sean Goldman. In fact, the federal judge in June, when he issued his ruling, said very clearly in his decision that after Sean's mother's death, the fact that Sean was not handed over to his biological father basically constitutes a second abduction of Sean. So the law is very clear, and the judges have been saying so all along. We just have one Supreme Court justice who seems to see it a different way.
Okay, well, we're going to continue this conversation. If you have questions, call in. The number 1-877-TEL-HLN. We'll also ask Mark, how's little Sean taking this? What does he know about the situation? Has he been turned against his father by his family in Brazil? We'll take that up as well. Stay with us. Welcome back to Prime News on HLN. We're continuing our conversation. Any moment now, Supreme Court in Brazil could decide that little 9-year-old Sean Goldman should return to the United States with his father, David Goldman. Now, we've been down this road before. David Goldman close to having custody of his son again, only to be denied by legal proceedings, legal maneuvers. We'll see what happens here. Taking your calls, 1-877-TEL-HLN. Chenna is with us in Connecticut. Chenna, your thoughts?
Hi, Mike. How you doing?
Great.
Okay, this is going to sound terrible.
Uh-oh.
But I thought that in custody disputes, it's always about the best interest of the child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's been in Brazil for 5 years, living with these people. I really feel like, would it be detrimental to him or traumatizing to him in any way to have to come back and reacclimate himself to the States where he's been gone for so long, even though that's his biological dad?
Yeah, it's been 5 years now. You make a good point there. Thanks for the call. Well, I mean, most would say, and as a father myself, I'd say that being separated from your son and a son being separated from your biological father is traumatic and damaging in and of itself. Vikki, let's talk about that. How much is the Brazilian court weighing that? Because that's the argument from his family in Brazil. Hey, this is the family he knows. This is the life he knows. You can't take him now, right?
Right. Well, certainly that's one of their arguments, but we have to really remember here, the mother who passed away violated a court order where Mr. Goldman had custody of Sean. She abducted him, obviously, went to Brazil and never went back. So the genesis of custody really was in favor of Mr. Goldman when she abducted the child. Number two, the child should have been returned within 6 weeks to New Jersey, and then a custody battle should have ensued here. So this child, really, the best interest test really is what is supposed to lend itself to where he goes ultimately, but it's really the court's fault. They've left him in abeyance, shall we say, and have extricated him from his biological father. So at this point, they've done the damage. The child will need therapy when he hopefully comes home and gets returned. But at the end of the day, this is a biological father who needs to be reunited with his son, not the other way around.
Right. Let's listen to David Goldman talking about the steps that need to be taken for a reunification and a fresh start with his son, Sean. Let's listen to that.
The first step is for Sean and I to reunite, come home, be with our family, and I will not do to them what they have done to Sean and me. I've had 5 years of love to give him, so he's going to get an extraordinary amount. And he's got grandparents, and he's got cousins, and he's got familiar habitat that he was once in. And with love and patience, we will heal.
A confident father there. Let's bring back Mark DeAngelis again, a friend of David Goldman. What we pick up on what David said there, Mark, that he will not do to them what they did to him. What he's talking about there is documented evidence that they turned talk about his family in Brazil, turned them against Dad, right?
Absolutely. I mean, let's talk about this best interest of Sean right here for a minute, if we could. Certainly, when you have court evidence, as documented by three independent court-appointed psychologists and cited by the judge in his June return order, describing the violent and severe form of psychological child abuse and parental alienation that Sean has been subjected to, and then you've got, this best interest of Sean. How could it be anything other than in Sean's best interest for him to have a relationship with his loving father who misses him, who is waiting to heal with him back at home with his family that he's been separated from against his will? That's his best interest. Yeah,
parental alienation, a key. Real quick, let's get a call in. Is Joy with us in Connecticut?
Hi, Mike. Happy holidays.
Yeah, you as well, Joy. Your thoughts here?
Mike, my question is, have the courts asked Sean who he wants to live with? And if the dad gets custody back here and brings him to the United States, does the dad have a child psychologist ready to work with Sean?
Okay. Joy, thanks for the phone call. Vikki, how is the setup? Real quick, clock's ticking on us. But they'll have psychologists ready for that reacclimation with his father if and when this takes place, a reunification and a new life in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he'll have one ready on hand as soon as Sean is brought home, so they can have visitation with the therapist and the family. And yeah, I think Sean has said on numerous occasions, Judge, you need to decide. I'm not really sure, and he's torn. So at the end of the day, Sean's testimony as to where he wants to live is not going to be at all subjective in the sense that it's not binding. He doesn't really know what he wants. He's been brainwashed,
little
clearly.
Kid's 9 as well. All right, Vikki, Mark, we appreciate it. We know that we believe there's going to be a decision tomorrow now. That's what we're hearing. So we'll keep you posted on that. And also, we're following this story, a frantic 911 call for help